In all thy Son's commands, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Okay, record of attendance. Linda, record of attendance. This is not going to be good.
Make a motion, Your Worship, we excuse Councillor Dennis from tonight's meeting.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? Understanding you can declare at the time of the item. Approval of agenda additions. So I have a couple of additions, and we're probably going to the second page for that. Okay, so under 14A, retirement, Betty McDonald. 14B, Municipal Innovation Award. Anything else? Anyone want it to? And I'll remove 10B because there just wasn't enough information.
I think committee of the whole, if not the last council meeting, I brought up that dog bylaw issue.
You put your light on there, Cliff.
Brought up the dog bylaw issue. I've had some action on the part of town staff and the SPCA, and I'd like to update
Okay.
on that one.
So we're going to put dog bylaw under
It's
14C.
an update.
Councillor Hood. Anybody else? Want to turn his light up, Linda? Good, thank you. All right, approval of the agenda with the additions and deletions.
So moved. Second, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so we have a full house tonight. We have presentation to RCMP auxiliary members. So what we will do is, we have something from the town, and your sergeant has something. I see all kinds of bags down there. It looks like goodie bags. So what we'll do is just maybe one at a time. Do you want to come up? Sorry. You can do this, and we just want to make sure that we're on. Yeah, that'd be great too. And just make sure we're on camera. Thank you. So we're on. Put these here, and I'll do one at a time. So first of all, do you want to say what the auxiliary program is? No, you go ahead. You can do that part. You're going to work for it.
Oh, I didn't know it was going to
I
come.
know you didn't.
Well, the Auxiliary Constable program is basically it's a volunteer from the community that agrees to volunteer their time to assist us in our duty. And the auxiliary member here tonight have dedicated like hundreds and hundreds of hours to help us covering shift, assist us in all kind of stuff, functions, from traffic duties, parades, covering shift, assist member to conduct all kind of enforcement duties, mostly night shift, patrols, all kind of stuff like that over the years. And the Rcmp has, that had been going on for decades, but the Rcmp has decided to change the program, and because of some issues with liabilities and training and budget. And we have to terminate the program here locally. And tonight we want to say thank you and acknowledge their commitment to the community and to assist us, the Rcmp, in providing the policing service in the community.
Thank you. That was really good. So thank you is hardly enough. These are very small tokens of our appreciation, and as our police chief said, you know, hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of hours by the auxiliaries. And yeah, and I remember when this gentleman first got into the force, and I was there as a civilian member, and I don't think there were too many times that we didn't say, we need to call an auxiliary, and they were always there. So thank you for that, for years and years and years of service. We really appreciate it. So first, Auxiliary Constable Linda Hatfield. Feel free to give him a hand. We can then. I'll read the first one. Presented to Auxiliary Constable Linda Hatfield by the Town of Yarmouth in recognition of service to the RCMP Auxiliary and our community. Your selfless dedication, commitment, and contribution to policing in the Town of Yarmouth is commendable. Thank you so much for everything you've done. I know it's a lot of years, and we appreciate it. Thank you. And Auxiliary Constable Donald Smith.
Hey, Don.
Thank you for everything. Good stuff. Thank you. Auxiliary Constable Shannon King. Congratulations and thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
See those arms going up?
Shannon, you're getting the weight roll back there, Shannon.
Yeah, we can. Auxiliary Constable Ron Kelly. Thank you. Here you go. And he's got something.
Hey, Ronnie.
And the last one is, he couldn't be here. It's Auxiliary Constable Keith Miller. Yeah, I know, but I'll get emotional. Keith, I saw Keith every single day in my 18 years. Every single day he did something for us. And I know everybody did the same thing. It's just that Keith was there for the drug section. He never said no. He showed up He even showed up unannounced, asking, is there anything I can do? And Michelle always had a door that he had to kick down, so it was always good. So Michelle's going to accept this on behalf of Keith with our deepest gratitude. Thank you. I'll say this while I have the microphone. We have the best police chief. Thank you for everything you do. We always say we don't hear anything because everything is smooth, and he's doing a tremendous job. So from all of us to you and your entire team, boy, you rock it. Thank you, everyone. We don't want you to feel like you're more than welcome to stay. We don't want you to feel like you have to. Usually people sit there and go, can we sneak out? So. What I meant was some of you can stay. Maybe. Thanks, Hugh. Sad to see that program go. Okay, so we have approval of minutes on the agenda next. Town Council, November 12th. 2018. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Town Council, November 21st, 2018. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Oh, I see it now. Town Council, November 15th. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And we have Town Council, no, would be Committee of the Whole, November 28th, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. So now we have a presentation, campaign to protect offshore Nova Scotia. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Move the screen around so you can just.
We have one right in front, yeah. We're all covered.
And this is my wife, Lois Sweet, who's going to
Assist.
take the technology off my hands.
Okay, and then maybe speak as closely into the microphone as you can because you're being televised.
Okay.
So Linda, you probably spoke with Linda to set this up. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to address the Yarmouth Town Council. My name is Peter Puxley. I'm one of the founding members of the Campaign to Protect Offshore Nova Scotia, or CPONS as we call it. I'm an economist and a policy researcher by background. I'd like to say I'm retired, but this is a very this particular cause has occupied my time fully for several years now. About 3 years ago, almost to the day, the Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Board, not coincidentally after the federal election, when we might have been able to discuss this as part of the election, approved the plans for Shell Oil to drill on the Scotian Shelf. And like other inhabitants of the southwestern half of the province, a number of us had questions about how they reached that decision. We went to a CNSOPB meeting expecting answers and got only the industry perspective. The more we dug, the clearer it became that the regulator ignored scientific evidence that contradicted industry assurances that there was no risk they couldn't handle. The fishery was also ignored. DFO scientists were given only 7 days to assess Shell's environmental assessment statement. It's a bit of a joke, really. But even so, they found that Shell unbelievably had failed to take into account tides, storm frequency, wave action, and had no assessment of the impact of their operation on the fishery. We decided to organize to fill the information gap. We were aware that most of us along this coast really didn't know very much about what was taking place in the offshore. The more we dug in, the more we realized that the CNSOPB favored one industry over all others. Its members came from the oil industry, and despite their best intentions, and they have good intentions, they embody the culture of that spoiled, entitled world and are used to getting their way. And we sought reform of the CNSOPB initially because the Trudeau government at that point was looking at reforming the onshore equivalent, the National Energy Board, and we thought they should be doing the same thing with the CNSOPB. The new Impact Assessment Act, in fact, doesn't touch the offshore boards, and we believe it should. We believe that decisions about offshore development today lack democratic legitimacy. Affected communities have been deprived of essential information. They've been excluded from the decision-making process, and we feel they must be involved fully. We are convinced that only a full public inquiry will work to inform our communities, to identify gaps in the science that need to be filled, and to accurately assess the risks offshore exploration poses to our marine environment and our regional economic base. And we've come to seek your support. Now, why should municipalities get involved? It's not really a question of jurisdiction. It's really more the right to take a position on a matter that fundamentally threatens the economic base of our communities. On the contrary, I think it would be irresponsible to remain silent in the face of the catastrophe that offshore exploration poses. Municipalities should also defend the rights of their citizens to be heard on a matter so critical to their livelihoods and standard of living. And remember that municipalities along the U.S. Atlantic coast were the main force behind Obama's permanent moratorium on oil exploration on the eastern U.S. offshore. Well, now, what about the risk? Because this is really something we feel very strongly has been underestimated. The worst case scenario is that of BP's Deepwater Horizons blowout in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico, in water about half the depth, less than half the depth of where we're drilling now in Nova Scotia, and much less stormy conditions. It's the largest oil spill in history, and the spill, when eventually affected an area of ocean more than 3 times the size of Nova Scotia. What might that look like here? A catastrophic blowout could destroy our sustainable fishery. These are maps showing, first of all, the lease sites along the Scotian Shelf, the currents in and out of the Bay of Fundy, and next slide, please. The lobster, where the lobster are concentrated, their spawning grounds. What happens when they spawn? You'll see the movement of the eggs into the Bay of Fundy from well offshore to begin with. The catastrophic blowout could destroy our lobster spawning grounds first and foremost, fish spawning grounds, nurseries for scallops, groundfish, not to mention the impact on sea mammals. And then, of course, there's the potential impact on tourism, which is perhaps the biggest industry of all. As for the economic impact of those industries, our sustainable fishery brings in close to $2 billion a year in revenue. A large portion of that in southwestern Nova Scotia, as I'm sure you're well aware. And our tourism industry is worth another $2.5 billion annually. And there, of course, is a multiplier effect. Those dollars are spent locally, and they are spent and respent, and the conservative multiplier would be somewhere between 3 and 4 times that amount is recirculated through the regional economy. The return to oil and gas development, by comparison, are short-term and tiny. Total royalties from 16 years of oil industry activity off our shore barely equals 1 year's export value of the fishery. As for jobs, there are somewhere between 300 and 400 permanent jobs when the industry is going full tilt, which it isn't at the moment, at the height of production. Compare that with the thousands in the fishery and tourism sectors. In short, investment in our traditional renewable resource industries produces many more jobs per dollar than investment in the oil industry's priorities. What's the chance of a catastrophic spill? Now, one of the world's leading experts on risk assessment in the offshore oil industry is Dr. Robert B. of the University of California. He's a scientist and engineer with 48 years' experience in the industry and in 72 countries worldwide, including Canada. He worked in Hibernia and in the Canadian Arctic. Dr. B says the risk of a catastrophic blowout and oil spill in offshore Nova Scotia has been grossly underestimated by BP and the regulators. Using internationally accepted standards, he says the actual risk is between 10 and 100 times greater than BP pretends. Determining the level of risk is a scientific and actuarial task, and a task for experts like Dr. B. But deciding whether the risk is acceptable isn't a scientific decision. It's a political one. Today, it's the unelected regulators who decide, not the people most affected, we who live in coastal Nova Scotia communities. We've not been given the information nor the chance to express an informed opinion, and that's just not good enough. Back in 1986, when Texaco wanted to explore for oil on the crucial Georges Bank fishing grounds, the federal and provincial governments passed legislation which opened the door to the creation, ironically, of the regulator that I now decry, but at that time was a step forward, an important step forward. And they set up a panel. They declared a moratorium, and they said the moratorium would last until 2000. And just before it expired, they set up a panel, a joint federal and provincial panel, to assess what we knew of the risks and potential effects of oil exploration offshore. The panel also made it a priority to educate the public in an unprecedented series of workshops, meetings, and public hearings in the communities most affected, Yarmouth being one of them. I'm sure there may be people here with memory of that time. The panel's process remains a model of public engagement. The result, based on the precautionary principle, was to recommend a moratorium, and that moratorium, as you know, is still in effect on Georges Bank. Thank goodness. But why should we expect less in the rest of our fishery? We need a public inquiry to inform the public on the latest science, on risk assessment, impact of seismic activities, the added risks of deep water drilling, use of dispersants, other responses to oil spills, ocean acidification, potential for recovery of the inshore fishery, renewable energy alternatives, and so on. There are a whole list of things that come to mind the more you get into this. To assess the magnitude of the risk to the marine biosphere and to the economic base of southwestern Nova Scotia. To ensure informed public participation in decisions about developments in our offshore. To treat community representation and that of traditional industries as evidence on an equal plane with that of the oil industry, which it certainly isn't today. To ensure independent expert opinion is taken into account, and we want it conducted by an unimpeachable individual or panel of three, like the Georges Bank panel, accountable for how they dispose of the evidence they hear, mandated to make recommendations on managing future oil and gas activity offshore, and including moratoriums or prohibitions in areas that are too sensitive to allow oil exploration to take place. But such an inquiry won't happen without effective public pressure. So that's why we're here, to seek your support for our call for a public inquiry by passing, as many of your colleagues are doing elsewhere along the coast, and publicizing a resolution similar to that which is on the slide in front of you, but I think we've also circulated. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address you on this important issue, and very pleased that you took the time to hear me.
Thank you. Good. Any questions? So you understand, there are no decisions this evening? We don't make a decision?
No,
when we have a
I fully
presentation?
understand that, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Are we good? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hood, go ahead.
I have some questions. In 1963, you mentioned Shell Canada. I was employed by Shell Canada as an engineering technician, and it was the first year they did seismic off Nova Scotia. The seismic routine in that time was much different than it is today. They were using unexploded depth charges from World War II and dynamite. In fact, we blew up one of the boats that summer. However, I had a job picking seismic records. And based on those seismic records, eventually in 1967, Mobil Oil came along. And Mobil employed me, or the company I worked for, and I did the location surveys for the first oil well drilled on Sable Island. I was there the day they spudded in, and I continued to work on that project all that summer. Since that time, we've had a number of oil and gas projects offshore Nova Scotia, which have operated, for the most part, within the regulatory framework, and have worked pretty much in coexistence with the fishing industry. This morning's headline in the newspaper, Chronicle Herald, says that Nova Scotia will have the lowest GDP of the Atlantic provinces this year, and that's attributed to the lack and wind-up of the oil and gas industry off Nova Scotia at the present time. I have a son that's worked in the offshore for the last 20 years, Persian Gulf, Gulf of Mexico, just finished a 2-year contract offshore Brazil, North Sea, offshore Nova Scotia, offshore Newfoundland, Far East, China. Are you saying there should be no oil and gas drilling whatsoever, anywhere?
I don't believe I said that in any
No, I'm
way,
asking
shape,
you
or
that
form.
question. Do you?
No, I personally don't feel we know enough to make a decision as to where we can drill safely. I grant what you're saying, but those wells were in much shallower water. They were gas wells, not oil wells, for the most part out
Well,
there.
the first, LASMO was,
The first one was on Sable Island that you mentioned,
and subsequently,
yeah.
they found gas below that.
but no, I'm not saying there should be no, what I'm saying is we should know what we're talking about before we go ahead, and we do not at the moment. That's why we're having accidents almost daily.
So a public inquiry, what legislation are you proposing to bring that up under?
Well, it could be done under the new Impact Assessment Act. It could be done under the same act that created the CNSOPB. The CNSOPB actually has
So you're not
the
talking
mandate to hold public hearings, but it has never done so.
No, but we have legislation for public inquiries, either at federal or provincial
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, but I don't think nothing stands in the way of there being a public inquiry on which both levels of government cooperate. I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you a chapter and verse
Do you
answer.
concede right now that pretty much the oil and gas thing has gone dormant here in the province? There's no drilling. Everything's gone away.
Well, there is drilling, at least there has been up until
They've
a
moved
few
on.
days
They're
ago.
gone. They're finished.
Yeah.
They finished their program. They've capped their wells. They haven't found any marketable hydrocarbons.
Starting this spring, and they haven't canceled it yet, the Equinor, which is the former Statoil of Norway, will be conducting the largest seismic survey that's ever happened in our offshore.
So I've
And
been
we know a
for-
lot more about seismic than we did in the day when it was happening, and we know it's very deleterious to the fishery and to mammal population.
So I've been from one end of Norway to the other to see their operation, including as far north as Hammerfest. And they have oil and gas installations which are completely submerged underwater, 100 kilometers offshore, bring the gas ashore into Hammerfest into a regasification plant because that's too far located from their infrastructure down south. And the country's been transformed by the industry.
In Norway,
All offshore. They don't have any onshore.
everything is out of bounds in Norway until you apply to drill, and then you go through a very rigorous process, which involves also the legislative approval of your plan. So in a way, it's the exact reverse of what we do here.
Well, I disagree, because when I was in Norway, part of the job that I was involved with was to find out how they did it and how they did it. And much of what they do in Norway has been imported into the Canadian regulatory system, as I understand it.
I'm afraid not.
In fact, Statoil, in fact, is a player in our offshore.
It is, because it knows a good deal when it sees one. We could do
Those
it.
are my questions, thank you.
Good. Okay, so thank you for coming in. We do have the documents, because I was following. It's a little there, but we can see it, but we have them.
Yeah.
We each have one. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your
Oh,
questions.
sorry, Jim, you have a,
Just your presentation now, that's a slide presentation. That's not exactly what we have. We have all the information. Would we be able to get that presentation?
I can send you a copy of my remarks and the up-to-date slide.
All of that material's in our package. It isn't all. It's in there.
good?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
In the end, I don't have any more to say.
Okay, like,
I've got an open book on this. A little too tight, a little too close to the,
are you good?
yeah, I'm good.
Okay, Linda? You're late. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so business. Thank you for the Christmas tree donation. So, what? You're gonna, sorry. So every day when we come into town hall and when folks drive by and visit town hall, there's a beautiful Christmas tree that we have every year. And this year, it was donated by folks at our neighbors, Acadia First Nations. We just want to say a heartfelt thank you for the generous gift. It's beautiful, and everyone's enjoying it. So
I'll make a motion,
Thank
Your
you.
Worship, to send them a letter of thanks for their generous gift to the town of Yarmouth and surrounding area.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. And Nova Scotia Power read the November 29th outage. So we have the information. I think it's just a receive and place on file. Okay, so they, and you know, I get emails. I don't know if everyone gets emails, but they email me constantly to keep us updated. So that's great. Okay, correspondence, municipal affairs to Town of Shelburne with regard to central dispatch. And that was a letter that we
For your pass it tonight, Your Worship.
We are? Right on. In the committee of the whole stuff. Right on, okay. Reports, council advisory, committee of the whole, deputy mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We got lights on, they just don't seem, there you are.
Good, thank you, Your Worship. I make a motion that the matter of a sidewalk connection continuing east on Stairs Road to the town boundary be referred to the town engineer for a budget estimate.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your Worship, I move that the town of Yarmouth support the town of Shelburne in the effort to have the province establish a standard central fire dispatch service.
Moved and seconded, and that was actually brought up at I think it was the FSAN's provincial, and it was voted on unanimously by all the
Yeah.
fire chiefs
Yep.
for central dispatch. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your Worship, I move that the matter of the creation of a fall litter cleanup program similar to the Adopt a Block Spring program be referred to budget.
Moved and seconded. This was Councillor
Councillor
Cleveland
Cleveland, I
that put it
believe.
on. Yes. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy. Okay, Citizen Advisory, Planning Advisory Committee, Councillor McLeod.
Meeting's already too short, Your Worship. From our Planning Advisory Committee meeting of the 4th of December, I move to proceed to a public hearing in order to consider, and if deemed advisable, enter into a development agreement for the expansion of the Canadian Tire store at 120 Stars Road, as outlined in Morris's report, our planner's report.
Moved and seconded. Were you going to say something, Deputy?
Question to the CAO, Your Worship. This plan can be seen on our website, Jeff? Somebody wants to have a look at it?
Your Worship, the planner's report is on our website in a couple places. From the Planning Advisory Committee meeting, the entire development agreement, including the site plans, have been available for a couple of weeks, and they are attached to tonight's agenda for people to view. And if anybody had any questions or wanted to see paper copies, they can do so by visiting the planning office here Monday to Friday.
And I think if I'm right, they're looking to go from roughly 50,000 square feet to just around 80,000? 87,000? Yeah, so almost
Significant
increase in
build-out.
space, yeah.
Yes. That's largely consistent with our intent in the revised municipal planning strategy, a process we went through a couple of years ago. And it's, so you have an application for a development agreement that is in line with the kind of initiative we were hoping would fall out of that.
Good, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so we have reports for information. Any questions for committee chairs? Good?
A number of us are serving on, I think I counted up last night, 7 committees. And we do work every month or every other month on these committees. Some are every month. And I'm sure that my colleagues around us were sharing some of the burden with one of the councillors and so on. So the fact that you don't hear anything from a committee chair or a committee member at each meeting does not mean those meetings are not being conducted and people aren't attending. They are.
Oh, absolutely.
Every one of us. So.
Yeah.
And this has been a busy month or two. Very busy.
Sure has.
Thank you.
Your Worship, our last Lake George Watershed Advisory, do we have that one after last council meeting or no?
I don't know, but we did have it, and we
Maybe give us a
are
little-
well aligned with the Department of Environment. They could not attend that meeting, but we had a very good proposal, and I have a draft resolution that somebody might be interested in. Basically, what we're going to try to do is direct staff to contact the provincial and federal departments of environment to deal with what we think is a critical issue. And the critical issue is, what do we do with the mandated stream flows that we're required to allow over the dam in times of extreme drought? We think we could develop a protocol whereby we would reduce those flows so that the flows don't add any more water to the brook than would be added to other brooks that are already suffering the effect of the drought. We should not have to keep the pollywogs more healthy than in the rest of the ordinary natural environment. And we should make sure that we have enough water to supply the town, to supply our 3 major customers, which are 2 fish plants in the hospital, the firefighting, and be able to provide 1 million gallons of water to people with wells and so on, as we've done in the past. So strict adherence to that protocol that we're mandated to these mandated stream flows, we could run out of water. We were getting into a situation this summer where there could very well, another week, we would have probably had to impose some restrictions on water use.
Okay.
So we are working on that, Your Worship, and right now, we don't have anything to worry about, lots of water.
But you know what? It's just going to recur every year.
It seems
every
like,
second year.
2 years ago, when we first offered this, Your Worship, I don't think anyone's thought that we'd see a drought like that again, and we've seen it this past summer. So we have to prepare for that, and we're going to have some vigorous representation from our people in Ottawa who set the standard, and from the Department of Environment in Nova Scotia who impose it. And hopefully somebody around Yarmouth will get elected that'll have enough push to help us get that done if it becomes necessary that way. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for committee chairs? Additions? CEO's being funny next to me. 14A. I think everyone's aware, I was there this afternoon. Betty McDonald has retired from NSFM. She was there for a number of years, a strong advocate on behalf of municipalities province-wide, and she retired today. They had a farewell. I actually spent a couple days conducting interviews for her replacement as well. So it was great, and I'm looking for a motion basically to send a card and a note to. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Municipal Innovation Award. I'm not sure if everybody was aware of this. So I wasn't aware of this, but our economic development officer put in an application or paperwork, nomination for a Municipal Innovation Award nationally. And we came in second with the 100-meal program. And I was humbled, shocked, thankful. I think some of the criteria was that it had to be innovative. I don't know. I guess I didn't understand how innovative it was. We just needed to do something to help feed people through the coldest days of winter, and at a municipal level, we couldn't put more money in people's pockets. So how do you do it? I just thought you don't put more money in, you stop money from going out. And that was the meal provided each day. Sometimes there's families of, four children and the parents. There's seniors, there's all kinds of folks. And it is a community meal. So everyone sitting at the table, doesn't matter what your circumstance is, you just welcome. We served, and I have to say, when they asked, I said, well, we probably served 800 or 900 meals. We didn't. We served close to 6,000 meals last winter in the 100 days. So this is what it looks like. Municipal Innovation Award finalist 2018 to the town of Yarmouth, meal a day for 100 days. So we're pretty proud of that, and thanks to our EDO for putting that in. One of the big pieces of it was that you had to be able to do it in another community, and I can't imagine a community that wouldn't want to give this a go. So it's a big deal.
And there was a financial component
yes.
to that, Your Worship?
Yes.
Can you tell us what
So
that title?
absolutely. So there was, with our award, $500, and it couldn't come to us because we thought, well, we'll just put it to the 100 meals, but it couldn't come to us. So, everybody stepped up, but in particular, the Hope Center opened their doors wide open. So I was hoping you would all make a motion that $500 could go to Hope Center, because they do use, everybody does the meals.
They're taking extra shifts this year.
They are taking, extra shifts, and so,
Make a motion, we grant the $500 to the Hope Center for the 100 Meals program.
Okay?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. The dog bylaw. Councillor Hood?
Your Worship raised the issue of some complaints about some activity on Elm Street in that neighborhood. There's been follow-up since that. The same dog that caused the complaint's been out loose, and I've had discussions with town staff. Town staff acted, and there was a concern about the competencies, maybe, of the enforcement people at the SPCA. We've had a lengthy report back from the SPCA outlining the competencies, the staffing, and the qualifications and courses being taken by the people out there, and frankly, I thought it was impressive. Sadly, I have to say that we're still having trouble with the same dog. There was another incident this week, but however, I think staff have provided, I commend staff for taking the steps they did on this one, and I'm sure that they'll get to the bottom of it with the help of our contractor, the SPCA, in due course. But it's a nuisance. That dog got loose again this week. It has caused injury last summer to a person, we want to keep pushing on it. But I will say that any questions arising out of the level of training and so on of the staff out there has been answered as a result of the inquiries made by the CAO in response to the concern I had. I thank them for that.
Thank you for the update. Okay, additions, approval of invoices.
So move, Your Worship.
Okay. Seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. The date of the next meeting is January 10th, and we won't have Linda with us at the next meeting because this is her last meeting of council after 46 years. So my Grampy was your first mayor. I guess we're the bookends. You started with him and you finished with me. I was your second solicitor. You were? Wow.
Who was the one before that? Okay.
Wow. So, oh my dear. Jim, so Councillor MacLeod recommended you. My Grampy was your first mayor. Councillor Hood was your second solicitor. Wow. So there are hardly, I don't want to embarrass Linda because I know you're shy, but there are hardly words that can say thank you. I think you have magical powers, I'm pretty sure, because she just is amazing. We're going to miss you tremendously. And I can talk for hours, but I can never express my appreciation. I don't know if you want to say something. I know, wait a second, we're going to get in line. I'm going to really embarrass you, say we really love you. We genuinely do.
Yeah. I had the opportunity for my 4 years as mayor to work with Linda, and not to go on and on, but if you want to know about Linda, all you have to do is look at the dictionary under class and professionalism. Linda exemplifies both of those words. It's been a pleasure, Linda, working with you. Your Worship, you can attest, Jeff, you can attest, anybody can attest that anybody's had any interaction with Linda, she's the same mood every day. Upbeat, right? She's never has a down day, and when you talk to Linda, and the only thing I can't understand about Linda, when she eats a piece of chocolate, it takes me like a chocolate bar, it takes me like 12 seconds to eat one. It takes Linda, you get Linda a chocolate bar, it takes her 2 weeks. She'll eat it, she'll enjoy it one piece at a time. But Linda, for myself and Darlene, thank you very much for your years of service. You were very good to me for not only those 4 years, but the following 6. It's been a pleasure. I know you're going to have lots to do with the grandkids, so, and you'll be back. I know you will be back to visit, so thank you very much on behalf of myself, Darlene, and the years that you provided me.
Your Worship, I didn't come prepared to speak tonight on this, but look, Linda has been an absolute pleasure to work with. I actually gave her the choice back a number of years ago. She was working, doing the human resources work, and my assistant left, and she did both jobs for a while. And I gave her the choice because it was too much. You can go back and do the human resource stuff, or you can stay on and be my assistant. And I can't tell you how many times over the years I've been thankful that she made the right choice. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I think you guys are going to realize in January, once she's gone, how much she did for me. Which is, it's in, you know, she's been wonderful, and you're right, Deputy Mayor, it's the same mood every day. A warm smile to start the day, and constantly struggling to get my attention to keep things moving, and no, she's been wonderful, and we're going to miss her. Thank you, Linda.
Go ahead.
I just want to, I go back, as I earlier, really quite far back, and she is her father, and that was we had a wonderful partnership relationship, and I think in some ways it's carried on through the years, and I enjoyed working with Linda as a counselor way back in 1985 through 91, and then more recently in 2012 and up to present. So thank you, Linda. Thank you for the connections. God bless. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Councillor Hood.
Well, when I was a little boy, our next door neighbors were the Spears family. And Johnny Spears ran a lunch counter shop on John Street. And the big treat for me as a little boy were the mornings when Dad would take me down to the breakfast group around the lunch counter at Mr. Spears' place. And he served bacon about that thing. And it was a big treat. But Art Spears and Ikey we're still friends, and Uncle Ikey, and Margie, and Phony. No, I got them all mixed up.
No, that's right.
They were our neighbors. And then I got a job here in the town as town solicitor, and there was Linda, had just been hired by Kay, not that long before I started out as solicitor in whatever year, probably 73 or 4 or something like that. And we had a whole bunch of lawsuits early on, and there was a lot of stress around here over those things, but we had a good outcome on all of them in those first 4 or 5 years that Linda was on the job. We went through the activity with the change from a town policing system to an Rcmp, and we had other issues with an engineer and so on and so forth. And we got through it all. And I think Linda learned a lot quick. She really did. And later on, after a while, I got elected and served with her for quite a long time. And here we are again. And I'm still standing. So I'll tell you, everybody so she's been through 3 CAOs, or a clerk and 2 CAOs. And I think every one of them thought that she was an absolutely critical adjunct to the work that they do. Thank you.
Dawn?
We lived on Elm Street together. We've had kids that you have kids that gone through my school. You've been professional all the way through life. You've been the most friendly person, very knowledgeable, gets everything done way beyond ahead of time, keeps us straight. Thank you for being my partner and me coming to this town hall that I never thought I would have ventured into. And one thing I know, that you will be missed more than anybody can ever tell you, and I think you know that. But it's very hard when you walk away from something, looking back of how I'm going to plan my day or plan my week, knowing that you've done so much for so many people for so many years. And the most important, You will be missed, and we love you.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to miss you all, that's for sure.
I'm going to have to learn to plan my own days.
You can still come.
You heard that? Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. I will miss it. It's going to be different, but I think I'm ready.
You'll visit.
Oh, I will visit. And I like, yes, it might be fast.
You good, Cliff?
Thank you.
There was, if we could just go back to business a bit. As we were scrolling through, there was the letter from Town of Shelburne on the
Yes.
dispatch. And there was
get me in
something I wanted to
trouble.
pick up on, but I didn't get my button down quick enough. But it is serious. About a week or 10 days ago, MP Bill Casey from Amherst raised the issue of the dispatch in Truro. Now, the history of that is that we lost we were no longer required to provide dispatch for policing approximately 20 years ago, and the Rcmp chose to go to a central dispatch. At that time, the Rcmp, one of the arguments they had to have two dispatch centers, one in Halifax and one in Truro, and they argued strongly that it had to be to redundancy. In other words, if dispatch went down in Truro, they'd have one in Halifax. If it went down in Halifax, they'd have one in Truro. So Casey was on there last week fighting for his people in Truro and his concern that they're going to now move it all into one in Halifax. And when I heard him making that, it struck me as being, all of a sudden now, it's not redundancy. But here's the critical point that I'm trying to get to. I thought somebody could pick up on that and get a hold of Casey and say, listen, why don't you talk to the province, get this going, and get the central dispatch for fire and thing, and save your darn dispatch center in Truro. I know we can't get it here in Yarmouth. I'd like to think we could. But really, that's an opening that somebody should pursue, and maybe Shelburne should be notified of that or something. Somebody should pick up on that. Now, yeah, I only brought this up now because I didn't want to lose a thought.
Okay, thank you. I think we're good. What? Well, we can,
Well, we're still in session, Your Worship.
yeah, we're still in session.
So maybe I'll make a motion that we ask the CAO to pass these comments on to the Mayor of Shelburne, that in addition to our letter, that they maybe look into that aspect, and maybe we do it on our own. I'm not sure. I don't want to, what's good of a motion that says maybe?
Go ahead.
I just think it's maybe it should just be passed, maybe the motion should be to pass a copy of the letter that we're sending on behalf of Shelburne, and the Shelburne letter off to Casey, and comment to Casey that maybe they should be looking into this, you know, in terms of that dispatch center in Truro, they should be looking into this initiative to establish a central dispatch for fire for the province. Would that make sense? So I'll make that a motion, if Your Worship.
Did you just say that?
Yes.
Why isn't it going to work?
It's not going to work. Centralizing dispatch is not going to work.
It worked for the RCMP.
I think it worked for this.
Okay.
Question, Your Worship.
Okay, questions called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. We good? Motion to adjourn. Oh, motion to go in camera. We have in camera. Okay. What?
My hat, took my hat.
Oh, I got a picture of your hat in front of the tree.
No, I don't think the camera.
Oh, yeah, you've been on camera tonight. You've been, there you go, wave now. There you go. Thanks, Joey.